Hello, everyone. I am meteorologist Hutch Johnson. We're going to talk about some big time changes in our weather across the entire nation as we head through the weekend and into next week. Now, for hunters, a chance for some snow out there if you are heading the fields. I got to tell you where. We could see some weekend snow up in the northern plains and the eastern plains of Montana and northwest North Dakota. It could be significant with some wind in a few spots. Some could see over 3 inches of snow, and we'll take it. Much needed moisture on the way. But we'll talk a little bit more about the main event that happens next week. And models are differing on this. So we're going to go over and compare, and I'll give you a meteorologist perspective on which models we might have a little bit more credence in and why. And let's get started right now. This is a look at an American model, and this American model shows that we do have the little weather wiggle working through this weekend, bringing the snow, and then boom, as we go into Tuesday of next week, this low pressure system moves out of the central plains. So early in the week, Monday and Tuesday, we'll have a chance for some strong showers and thunderstorms in the southern plains, moving into the central plains. And then by the time we get to Tuesday, it's moving into the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region. This is where models diverge in their solutions. So this American model here, by the way, is showing us that that storm will mainly focus with the center of low pressure moving right into the Great Lakes, its chance of snow in northern Minnesota. But that's not what all models say. And with this particular model, it does bring wraparound cold air on the backside of this. And watch what happens south of the Great Lakes. Once those winds whip around, we could see some significant rain and even some snow entering from another wave of energy from the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere through Indianapolis and all the way out into Pennsylvania. Look at this perfectly comma-shaped system that works its way through to the East Coast, with Pennsylvania potentially seeing wind and snow as we head into the latter portion of the week, Thursday and into Friday. So this is a big storm system that could have wide-reaching impacts from the southern Rockies, southern plains, central plains, northern plains, Great Lakes, and the New England states. All right, that's a look at that model. But what we're going to do is I want to talk to you just a little bit about some of these different models. And to do that, I'm going to go use the pivotal site. And I want to show you something that you're going to see here with regards to the European model, but also the American model. So here's the American model. And what we're going to do with this is I want to talk briefly about different models that are available. If you like looking at this kind of stuff as a meteorologist, I can tell you there's a couple of reasons why I hitch my wagon to models that are initialized at 0Z and 12Z. Now, there are runs that happen of these models when they press go and the simulations run the atmospheric data at 6Z and 18Z. And those models come out and sometimes come out at more useful times. But those models are often initialized largely on modeled data themselves. It's like taking guesses and putting into the model and saying, go, tell me what happens. Whereas at 0Z and 12Z, there's actually data from weather balloon soundings that have been launched all across the world. So it's real data, sometimes with real errors. So there's not perfection in those, but I tend to hitch my wagon to the 0Z and the 12Z model runs as opposed to the 18Z and the 6Z. Just for your information. Nice tool to have, particularly in short-term, short-range events, the next 24 to maybe 48 hours or so. Now, let's take a look at this. This is a look at the American model, but I'm going to switch it back to the 12Z run. This one is, again, initializing off of data that was delivered from the soundings from weather balloons all over the world, all at the same time. This one off at the 12Z time frame. So now as we take a look at this, this has a low pressure system rolling its way this weekend on Saturday through the northern plains. So for hunters up there, it's hunting season for the deer gun opener last weekend in North Dakota. This one working through with some snow and much needed moisture for the plains of eastern Montana and northwest to North Dakota. And it could sneak a little bit of rain in on the backside of it into northern Minnesota. But we start to see low pressure developing and delivering some heavy, heavy snow to British Columbia, as well as the Cascades and the Rockies of northern Idaho and Montana. Look at this system slam down to the south. Meanwhile, we have low pressure that develops with this wave down in the southern plains. Now, this system lifts out and heads almost due north right into Minnesota, carrying with it some much needed rain for places like Arkansas, parts of Oklahoma and Missouri seeing some good rain, and it really focuses in and around southern Minnesota and Iowa. As cold air on the backside mixes with this system on Tuesday, we'll likely see some snow transition. This model, the American model, has that snow transition on Tuesday as we go through the afternoon and into Wednesday, with some areas seeing wraparound snow on the backside and wind. So blustery conditions for sure, and some significant snowfall potential, upwards of several inches possible. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But again, this one showing the low pressure track making its way right into Minnesota before exiting out toward the Great Lakes, stretching its energy eastward and bringing that snow chance still to places like Pennsylvania, upstate New York, Erie, all of those places having that opportunity for snow as we get into the late week. That is the American model, showing some consistency rather between runs. Now we're going to switch this puppy right back over, and we're going to look at the European model rather, as the American model we just went over. Now, here's the weekend weather system. Notice more widespread snow across the northern plains as we go through the weekend this Saturday for hunters. Then the big system in the south delivers, and it marches northward. As it marches northward on this European model, it parks in Minnesota. It takes a track through South Dakota and moves into Minnesota, not going right for the Great Lakes. If this is the track it takes, there's a much better chance at seeing some more widespread snow and wind. See all these isobars here? Isobars is a change of pressure between our high pressure system and low pressure system. And the more isobars we see, well, the more in a hurry that air gets to be, right? Air in a hurry. That's what we call it. Gusty winds with snow. That doesn't sound like fun. The timing on this, similar to the American model, snow beginning on Tuesday, rain late Monday night and into Tuesday, transferring to snow as we go through, and then it makes its way off to the East Coast. And it still delivers a pretty significant punch of wind and snow to the southern Great Lakes region, not far from places like Toledo, maybe even as far south as the western sides of Pennsylvania. So that's a look at the European model. So now what let's take a look at here is going to take a gander at some of the snowfall potential with this. Again, I am going to stick with a look at the national picture here so we can just get a feel for what these models do. And I do also want to give you just a little bit of background on these global scale models like the European and the American model that we just went over. These models have grid points or input points on them that are pretty far apart compared to some of our short range models that are set to give us forecasts for the next 24 to 48 hours. And because of that wide range and distance between grid points when we start the model, the clarity of the output tends to be a little bit larger scale as well. What that means is that it makes every rainstorm look huge. So we see folks out there talking about huge snowstorms that are going to bring a foot or 2 feet of snow to huge areas. That rarely happens. It does happen. It can happen, but it rarely happens that the heaviest snow is so widespread. With this information, we're going to start with the European model, and we'll look at how this transports and transposes weekend snow in northern parts of the Dakotas. Let's take a look at how much it's saying. Anywhere from 1 to 3 inches up there in northeast Montana, but isolated pockets could see 3 inches or more of fluffy flakes, and it does come with some wind. Meanwhile, out in British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest, the Cascades, and moving into northern Idaho, that snow delivers at elevation, I mind you, 7 to 8 inches of potential snowfall in isolated places from that. Where you see these hot colors here in British Columbia, that moist air working right off the Pacific Ocean, forced right up the terrain, wringing out every snowflake possible. This model says up to 2 feet of snow. Is that possible? Yes. Is it possible over as wide of a spread area as this pink is showing up? Likely not. So keep that in mind. That's one thing that we can all take away from this. Now, as the storm system moves out of the southern plains, I'll show you some rainfall potential with it, but it doesn't really bring the snow until we get into Tuesday night and Wednesday, and here it starts increasing across much of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and North Dakota. So this system, working its way into Thursday now with that snow potential, has the potential to deliver, well, 2 to 5 inches of snow across portions of the Dakotas, according to the European model. You get up into Manitoba or the North Dakota border with Canada, and there are some spots that could see over 6 inches of snow. This model says 9 to 11. Am I forecasting a foot? No, I don't think so. This time of the year, the ground is still warm. There's a lot of warm air with this system. We'll just keep it at that. We'll watch this, though. So something to watch for. Then, as this system moves out toward the southern Great Lakes, it delivers some snow. I'm going to move my melon back over to the other side. And what you're going to notice is in the elevated terrain of Appalachia, we could have some spots Not widespread, not a lot, but we're showing 8 inches or more at the Appalachian there in parts of Virginia, West Virginia, and on into western parts of PA. Now look at the state of Ohio getting widespread snow there. What I see here is a lot of the area has a decent chance at picking up 1 to 3 inches of snow. However, this is a long ways away. It's 1 week out. And the ability to forecast a precise track this far out is not always that good. So we started with a look at the snowfall potential. Now with the European model, let's go back to the American model. Take a look at what it says. Here's your weekend snow. Oh boy, bigger snowfall amounts here in North Dakota. 9 inches to a foot. Are you kidding me? And it's showing the same thing, 6 inches to 8 inches in northeast Montana. Look at the snowfall total out in British Columbia, 1 to 3 feet of snow. That's 34 inches there. Again, this model, the American model, showing widespread peach colors there. We don't typically see 3 feet of snow that widespread over that huge of an area. It just doesn't happen too often. So keep that in mind. Now, that system works its way into the western Rockies of Montana, Idaho, and even into the Tetons, the Grand Tetons there of Wyoming. And then here comes the system. Now, this system, much different as we go into Wednesday and Thursday. It's showing that track not back to the west, but more along the international border, a little farther north, and the heavier impacts in southern Manitoba and far northern North Dakota. Snowfall ranges on this 6 to 12 inches in the heaviest areas. Again, we have to moderate that just a bit, and it's not going to be as widespread, but many in the area will see 1 inch to 2 inches of snow. Many will see their first snow across Dakotas and parts of the northern Minnesota area. Now, as we go in to Pennsylvania, heading into the late week, Thursday and Friday, look at this. Western PA gets clocked. Let me drag the cursor over this. 6 to 9 inches according to the American model. Again, this is next Thursday, so almost a week away. And then as we go into West Virginia and the Appalachians there, it's picking out some spots that are picking up 8 to 12 inches of snow. So there are some differences here. One thing Hutch likes to do then, take a look at both models. Are there similarities? You betcha. The timing for this storm system moving out of the southern plains and into the northern plains has it making its way out of the southern plains Monday and up here by Tuesday night and Wednesday, snowing until Thursday when it swings out into the Great Lakes. That timing is spot on. Snow in the Pacific Northwest seems to be a lock on all of the models that we're seeing, and some of it quite heavy. I'll take the snow in parts of Montana with drought there. Look at this. By the end of the model run here on the American model, we're talking 3 feet of snow in parts of the western Montana and up into Idaho. That's a lot of snow. I don't think we'll see that much, but there could be some places and passes that get significant amounts of snow. Now let's look at rainfall with this particular system, and we'll just look at this this American model just to get a guidance on how much rainfall potential there will be with this as we go through. And I'll go ahead and pop this up on the. Let's go ahead and look at the what's called QPF, quantitation of precipitation forecast. And there it is. This storm system lifts out of Texas. Heavy, heavy rain. North Texas, almost all of the state of Oklahoma picking up some rain showers, as well as much of Kansas into Missouri as well, before it moves and focuses on Iowa and Minnesota. These areas drought-stricken, not so much moisture with this system as we look up into the northern plains. This is liquid equivalent moisture, so it is counting the moisture equivalent from the snowfall. But look at this, 1 to 3 inches of rainfall across the southern plains of the United States is possible with that system as it works its way through. Then, when it works its way out, look at how wet the weather gets downwind from the Great Lakes with flow off of the lakes. Mingle in some cold air, and we're talking about the potential for a few areas maybe getting lake effect snow. It is that time of the year. 4 inches of rain in upstate New York and northwest PA. That is a look at the national picture with regards to this significant winter weather event and wet weather event for the southern plains. Now I want to take you on a walk, and we're going to look at one other model, and that's the Canadian model. Will looking at a third or fourth model help, or will it just jumble up the solution? What we can look for are coincidences and a coordination and timing of the system, as well as track. And let's see what this one says, just for giggles, because we might as well learn all we can about it. Now, here comes the weekend storm. This is the weekend chance of wind and snow in northern parts of North Dakota and eastern Montana. All models all show the same thing, similar amounts of snow, 1 to 3 inches, isolated places picking up 3 to 6. That system's out of here. Here comes the big storm system rocking its way straight out of the south with heavy rain, moving north right into the Dakotas. South Dakota and western Minnesota. That track would be more beneficial for snow in North Dakota when it's exiting out. Also, northern Minnesota may have a chance at that. But look at this, it moves straight north and not down towards the southern Great Lakes region until we get closer to Friday, and its track is completely different, taking a track right across the Great Lakes, which would take the best chance of snow north, but there will be plenty of wind and snow to be fed into the Appalachians there with this particular model as well. So, the conclusions that I have for you. You're hearing a lot about this weather, but from a meteorological standpoint, anything beyond days 3 and 4, our ability to be real accurate goes way down. Accurate with the track, accurate with the precipitation amounts, accurate with how much the heavier bands may produce. All of those details will come into more clear focus as we get a little bit closer. But for now, it's pertinent and it's prudent to watch this storm, because if you have travel plans in the Pacific Northwest over the next week, big time snow for some of the mountain passes there from Montana straight into Oregon and as far south as Wyoming and into parts of Idaho as well. And if you have travel plans in the southern plains, we could see strong to maybe even severe thunderstorms as this storm works its way out of Texas and lifts northward. We're talking cooler air mingling with the humid air of the south central United States after all. And that system moves up to the north, and it could bring some snowy and windy impacts to northern reaches of North Dakota and Minnesota, the way the three models all showed, as well as folks in the southern Great Lakes region and out towards Pennsylvania and the Appalachians as we head into the latter portion of next week. That's my conclusion. If you liked what you saw here, please drop me a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. I would love to have you subscribe by hitting the subscribe button right there on YouTube. And as always, tune in again for updates right here on Hutch's Weather. Ask a question. I'll look over these, and if there's something I can answer, I'll get to that answer for you. But for now, meteorologist Hutch Johnson checking out. Have yourself a wonderful day, and we'll talk again very soon right here.